Hey, my friend Adam here, and in today's video I'm going to share with you 10 things that will completely destroy your confidence so you can avoid making them. And I'll give you a few tips and tricks that you can use instead in order to build unstoppable confidence in any situation. And the first bad habit that will completely destroy your confidence is not having a goal to work towards. You see, one of the most common characteristics between all successful and highly accomplished and ultimately confident people is that they all have a goal that they're striving towards, something that they're working on, something that they're trying to achieve. Think of James Bond, 007, and basically whatever movie that he happens to be in. Well, he's got a goal and nothing's going to stop him from reaching that. Think of Indiana Jones, and again, pretty much any movie, whether it's Raiders of the Lost Ark or The Temple of Doom, or any of the other ones that I can't remember. Basically, again, he's got a goal that he's working towards and nothing's gonna get in his way. Or even characters like Ron Swanson, whose main goal is hiding his wealth and trying to destroy the government from the inside out. So those are the confident characters that you want to look at and realize that yes, they have something they're working towards, they're committed to it, and nothing's gonna get in their way. But then on the other end of the spectrum, well, we have characters like Nathan Shelley and Milhouse and Alan Harper and of course the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz. All characters without goals or dreams or ambitions of their own, not at least that are outwardly spoken or that we get to know about. And essentially all characters that get dragged along and pulled forward through the story by their more confident counterparts, basically being forced to take a back seat on their very own lives. Having a goal not only gives you purpose and drive and confidence, but it also forces you to become a more confident person simply by striving and achieving and overcoming all of the obstacles and all of the challenges and all of the problems that are going to be presented in pursuit of your goal. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 thing. Having a goal makes you more confident, and working towards that goal builds an unstoppable level of confidence. And here's the good news. Any goal is going to do for you to get started. Seriously, anything. Just like pick something. For real, any goal. For example, when I was 18 years old, my main driving goal was to get a Lamborghini. That was it. Not world peace, I didn't want to cure hunger or end poverty, I just wanted a fancy car. Because ultimately I thought it would make me look and therefore feel better. But it was by having this goal that led me to start taking actions that forced me to grow and forced me to learn. It led me to learning new skills and developing new habits and starting a business and essentially carving out an entire new life and path for myself. So, like I said, pick something. Anything, and just take that first step. Okay, number 2 on the list of things that will completely destroy your confidence is lowering your standards. Essentially just accepting whatever comes your way and treating life like, well, I guess that's just what happens to me. Or even worse, I guess that's what people like me are forced to deal with. Brutal. Now, there are a ton of problems with lowering your standards, but the greatest of them all is that it sort of sets you off down a slippery slope where you start being willing to compromise other areas of your life that might actually be very important and very meaningful and very powerful when it comes to you and the things that you want to do and your own identity. For example, we all have values and beliefs and things that, if we spend a little bit of time, are core to us. They're things that we're unwilling to compromise on. And when we start being willing to compromise on other areas or essentially lower our standards, it starts to bleed over. It starts to affect and impact us in all areas of life. Another problem with this is that it's your standards that show other people how to treat you, how to engage with you, how to interact with you. Essentially, your standards dictate the level of respect that you expect from other people. We teach other people how to treat us by showing approval when they do something good, like smiling or nodding or essentially agreeing with them. And we teach them how not to treat us by speaking out or letting them know that they've crossed a line or that we're unwilling to accept this kind of behavior or this kind of relationship. I've got a bit more to say on this one though in a future point, so we'll talk about that later in this video. For now though, let me give you a real life practical example, and it's something that we've all experienced. Let's say that you've got a friend who's just always late. Like I said, we all know somebody like that. Well, one option is just to accept the fact that they're always late, and hey, If they're gonna be late, that's okay. You're cool. You can chill. You can relax. You can just wait for them. And if one of your standards isn't centered around punctuality or anything like that, that is probably cool for you. But if you're someone who really does value punctuality, and every time they're late, it gets under your skin and it starts to make you resent them and feel anger towards them, well, it's up to you to do something. Now, obviously, be kind, be courteous, and don't just leave them stranded somewhere completely alone where they're never going to be able to get home. But as an example, if you say that you're going to go out to see a movie at 8 o'clock and by 8:15 they're still not there, well, you can go without them. Sure, they might get mad, they might get upset, but you can tell them you waited. You might even send them a complimentary text to let them know that you're heading out soon. And if you do this enough times, eventually, one of two things is going to happen. First of all, they might actually start showing up to things on time. Crazy, I know. Or they might get resentful in return and say, you're never willing to wait for me, in which case you can have an open conversation about what an acceptable waiting time is. It's gonna vary for everybody. But this does lead me perfectly to the next bad habit that will completely destroy your confidence, which is maintaining relationships with toxic people. There is nothing worse for your self-confidence than constantly being surrounded by people that put you down and call you names and just basically make you feel terrible about yourself. Now, they can do this overtly and obviously by saying things like, hey, I don't like your pants. What's wrong with my pants, man? Or they could say something less obvious, but maybe even more dangerous, like, are you sure you want to try that? I'm not really good at that kind of thing. And it's often the people that are closest to us that have the potential to do the most harm. Which is why the best advice that I can offer you here is to never take advice from anybody that doesn't fit the following 3 criteria. Number 1, never take advice from someone that doesn't know you. That's a thumbs up. Let's use a finger here. This is because you should never take any advice or criticism or suggestion or anything from somebody that doesn't know you because they don't know you. So how do they know if it's good or not, or relevant or important or anything? Number 2, never take advice or criticism or anything like that from somebody that doesn't have your best interest at heart. Now, this one is a little bit trickier to navigate because sometimes somebody can say something that's unkind or cruel and hurtful, even though they do have your best interest at heart, or at least that's what they're telling themselves. But oftentimes it's just words that are said to cover up their own insecurities and their own fears and their own regrets about things that they should have done. So be careful with that one. And number 3, and this one's very important, never take advice or criticism or anything like that from somebody who has not done the things that you want to accomplish. To put this one more bluntly, you should never take financial advice from poor people. You should never take fitness advice from somebody that's sick and unhealthy, possibly overweight. You should never take dating or marriage or relationship advice from somebody who's got a track record of train-wrecked relationships in their past. So be careful who you listen to and be careful who you spend time around. There's a famous Jim Rohn quote that says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. This is because everything that you do is influenced and impacted by the people and the relationships and essentially the environment that you're in. So you need to guard your network and your relationships very closely. Okay, next bad habit that will kill your confidence is neglecting your appearance. We've all had those days where we just don't feel like really putting in the extra effort. Maybe it means skipping a shower, maybe it means not getting dressed in our best clothes, maybe it means not doing our hair, or whatever it means. Whatever the case, we also all know that feeling when we do look and feel our best, which comes from putting in even just a tiny bit of effort into our appearance and the sort of the face and the image that we put forward to the world. Countless research studies have been done that have proven time and time again the incredible impact that the way that you dress and the way that you present yourself and just how positive an effect it can have on your overall attitude and belief and self-confidence. In fact, it's so powerful that it even impacts you right down to a cellular, biological level, essentially shifting and changing your views and your identity and your beliefs about yourself and about the world. Sounds crazy, I know, but hear me out. The scientific term for this is called enclothed cognition, and it's a phenomenon that describes the systematic influence that clothes have on the wearer's psychological processes. Or to put it in more basic terms, what you wear really dictates how you feel. I guess I'm having a black t-shirt kind of day. As an example, a study was conducted in order to see whether simply wearing a white lab coat, typically associated with being a doctor or scientist of some kind, would result in greater cognitive abilities or better focus, better concentration on important tasks. And what they found was yes. When the participants put on the white doctor's lab coat, they were more attentive and more careful about everything that they were doing. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to go out there and get a white lab coat and pretend that you're a doctor. I'm pretty sure that's illegal, not to mention unethical. But there are a few really easy fixes that you can do right now. Basically, just take a shower. Maybe put on some clothes that you like and make you feel good about yourself, and spend just a few minutes working on your appearance and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward. Feeling good about what you're wearing provides an immediate confidence boost, and this is especially noticeable in social situations. Okay, moving on to bad habit number 5, which is obsessing over minor flaws. All right, here's the deal. Everybody has flaws. Everybody. But obsessing over your flaws and making a proverbial mountain out of a molehill is another amazing way to destroy your self-confidence. I know it can be hard to see your flaws in yourself and not blow them out of proportion, and not imagine that everybody around you is looking at you and pointing and laughing and criticizing and all of those things. But the fact is, they're not doing any of them. And that's because nobody is thinking about you that much at all. In fact, they're just mostly thinking about themselves. You see, everybody has their own problems and anxieties and issues, and it's interesting how we as humans always imagine that other people are thinking about us when in reality they're just thinking about their own stuff. And something that I can tell you confidently, with absolute certainty, after more than 20 years of working with billionaires and multimillionaires and some of the world's most successful people, is that everybody has things that they're trying to figure out. I mean, we're all just trying to figure out this whole life thing as we go through it. Nobody's got all the answers. So, cut yourself some slack. Sure, you've got some flaws. If you can fix them, try and fix them. And otherwise, let's just move on, because nobody's really noticing them as much as you are. Okay, bad habit number 6 is one that I personally fell into for years before somebody finally slapped me out of it, and that is using too much self-deprecating humor. Self-deprecating humor, just in case you're not familiar with the term, is essentially just making fun of yourself for fun's sake. For years, I did this as a way to make myself seem more relatable and more authentic and just a generally funnier person. But it's got some downsides. First off, using self-deprecating humor and using it too often, well, it can lead to normalizing negative self-talk, essentially making fun of yourself so often that it starts to become normal. You almost start to kind of believe it. Next, it also starts to create kind of a false sense of humility, which means that you beat yourself up so much, even in a joking way, that when you finally do something that's amazing or noteworthy or recognizable or worth celebrating, you kind of brush it off. Another problem with this relates back to a previous point about teaching other people how to treat us based on our reactions. Well, by constantly making fun of yourself, it kind of opens the door and says that, hey, it's okay for other people too. And yet when they walk through that door, it hurts. It's not any fun. So yes, it is okay to laugh at yourself and to joke about yourself and to occasionally make fun of yourself. In fact, it's a great way, again, to kind of lower your own guard and lower the guard of other people around you by showing that you're kind of more relaxed and a little more fun to be around. But do not take it too far, my friend. Dangerous things can happen. Okay, the next bad habit has to do with other people as well, and in this case, it has to do with over-complimenting them. First off, we have to clear up a bit of a gray area between a compliment and over-complimenting. A compliment would be something like, hey, I really like your jacket. Over-complimenting, on the other hand, would look something like, hey, I really like your jacket, and your pants, and your shoes, and your hair, and your glasses. Oh, and what's that? Is that a new belt? It's amazing. Complimenting other people is actually a sign of confidence, as it shows that you're strong enough in yourself and your identity and your beliefs that you've got more than enough good feelings to go around. But over-complimenting and taking it too far is, well, just weird, sometimes creepy, a little bit sad. And it can do damage to your self-confidence by essentially positioning you slightly lower than the other person that you're providing all of these extraneous compliments to. Not to mention, over-complimenting can often come off as insincere, so all of these compliments that you're giving out anyway may not be well received. The solution here is fortunately fairly simple, and it has to do with genuine compliments. Finding that delicate balance between honest and appropriate praise, also keeping in mind the frequency with which that you're delivering all of these compliments to other people. Again, it's good to be kind. It's good to compliment other people. It's important even. Just be careful when it starts to look like it's going too far. Speaking of taking things too far, let's talk about the next bad habit, which has to do with excessive apologizing. Excessive apologizing can show up in a ton of different ways. One of which is simply saying sorry way too often or way too many times. Another is starting to apologize for things that aren't even really your fault. And neither of those are good for your self-confidence. First of all, over-apologizing in the first case of simply saying sorry way too many times shows that you're insecure in your actions or the decisions that you made. It can also lead to you feeling guilty and like you need to justify yourself to everybody at all times, which again is terrible if you want to become a confident and autonomous person of your very own. Next, apologizing for things that aren't your fault or that you had nothing to do with is a great way to train other people that you can always be relied upon to be a scapegoat or to take the fall. It happens subconsciously. This shift of looking at you as someone that's always going to take the blame happens relatively slowly and subconsciously, but it does happen. Most important of all though, when it comes to reasons that you should avoid excessive apologizing at all costs, comes down to the fact that it really does just make you doubt yourself. Always questioning and forced to reevaluate what you've done and what you've said and why you did it. So the solution here is actually pretty simple. Well, you know what your values are, what your standards are, what your ethics and morals are, and if you have close relationships with other people, you likely know what theirs are too. So if one of those happens to get crossed, apologize. On the other hand, it doesn't do you or anybody else any good if you start apologizing for everything that happens all throughout the day, because stuff happens. All right, moving on to bad habit number 9, letting others make decisions for you. This one kind of ties in nicely to the first point I made about not having a goal. In that, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have something that you're working towards or something that you want, you're really going to be forced to take a back seat in your own life, and you're going to be brought along as a piece of somebody else's plan. In other words, you can't feel truly confident unless you know what you want and what's important to you, what your beliefs and opinions are. In fact, one of the biggest reasons that peer pressure exists, especially in younger adults, whether in high school or college, is that they're still forming their views and their identities, and they're building up their confidence. This makes them incredibly susceptible to doing things that they may not want to do, which is a really big shame. On the flip side of that, if you look at someone who's incredibly confident in themselves and in what they believe and in what they want, it's not easy to get them to do anything that they don't want to do. Not because they're being stubborn or arrogant or difficult to work with, simply because they know what's important to them and they're doing that. Everybody else can just go do whatever they need to do. This is why it's incredibly important to, again, not only have a goal or something that you're working towards, but also spend a little bit of time trying to make sure that you're aware of your standards and of your, again, ethics and morals and values and beliefs and whatever mission that you're on. Okay, bad habit number 10, comparing yourself to others. I heard it said once that comparison was the thief of joy. I don't remember who said it, so I'm going to Google it. Theodore Roosevelt. No kidding. Well, Teddy wasn't wrong. When you compare yourself to other people, you destroy your self-confidence in the process, because very rarely do you get to see the entire picture. Especially when it comes to social media, all you're getting is a highlight reel, a few slivers of the very best parts of the very best moments of the very best days, none of which is realistic or accurate or factual in any way. So here's a little trick that I learned years ago that I found incredibly useful, and that is never compare yourself to someone else unless you're willing to compare everything. In other words, you can't simply say, well, I want that guy's car, but I want that guy's relationship, but I want that guy's fitness level, but I want that guy's vacations. Because the odds are good there's going to be some area, some level of gap or lack in all of those different situations. For example, the guy that's in peak physical condition, well, he may be sacrificing time with his family or time at work. The guy with the multi-million-dollar house and all the Ferraris in the driveway may be sacrificing time with family or time spent doing the things that he actually wants to do. And the guy that looks like he's got it all together, traveling the world, living that jet-set lifestyle, well, he might actually miss some core grounded relationships, or maybe even just spending a little downtime at home. But I think the biggest reason to not compare yourself to other people, of all of them, is because you're not other people. You're you. You've got your own unique skills and talents and dreams and desires. You really are a unique and special individual. But the fact is, there's literally nobody else who's ever going to have your exact genetic makeup, your exact level of experience, your exact goals and dreams and desires. So it's up to you to find what's important to you and then fulfill it. Of course, I appreciate that all of this can seem incredibly overwhelming, especially in today's age with so much going on, which is why, to help you out, I'm going to link up a video right here that's going to give you some of my best tips on how to simplify your life. So make sure to check that out now, and I'll see you in there in just a second.